How to divide octal numbers. In this tutorial, we will describe how to divide octal numbers. In the terms involved in math operations video, we discuss terms involved in division. Since we will be dividing octal numbers, the operands involved in division are dividend and divisor. The result would be the quotient and possibly a remainder. For example, let us divide the following. Okay, we're going to divide octal numbers. For this example, we're going to divide in decimal format. 206 is going to divide. We're going to divide it into 25,750. Our expected quotient would be 125. When we look towards the left, we have the representation of like for the value 2006, which represents the divisor and the decimal representation. It's equivalent to 316, which is represented in octal. For the value 25,750, we have 62226 is his octal representation. As you look towards the right, we have the same equation kind of written towards the right. It's in octal representation. We just wanted to show their comparison and their equivalency. We have 206 equals 316, and again 25,750 equals 62226 in octal. Before we compute this, let's look at the charts towards the left. Since we're dividing by 206, we want to go ahead and just create a chart with all the multiples of 206. So when you multiply 206 times 2, you get 412. When you multiply it times 3, you get 618. When you multiply 206 times 4, you get 824. When you multiply 206 times 5, you get 1030. When you have 2006 and multiply it times 6, you get 1236. When you multiply it times 7, you get 1442. And when you multiply 206 times 8, you get 1648. Towards the right of each of these, you see the octal representation. Pretty much I just went out to the internet and located an online decimal to octal conversion. I inserted these values in there, and it produces octal representation. And as you see, when we get ready to perform this computation, it's pretty much is going to come in pretty handy. So let's compute. All right, so we're going to divide 316 into 62226. This is octal representation. So we start off with division. We look at the first digit. So we say, does the value 316 divide into the value 6? And in this case, the answer is no. So we have a value of 0. Let's put 0 up to the top. And then we say 0 times 316 is 0. Then we subtract. We get 6. And we bring down the 2. And so this leaves us with 62. So we start the process all over again. 62. We said does 316 divides into the value 62? The answer is no. So we put a 0 to the top here. And then the next step is multiply 316 times 0. And we get 0. Then we subtract. And of course that leaves us with 62. And then we bring down the 2. And so this leaves us with a value of 622. Well, 622 is greater than 316, so of course it's going to divide into it, but let's find out how many times. We look to the chart towards the left, we see that 622 is not greater than 634, which is the second item or second row on my table towards the left. So what this says is since this is less than 634 in octal, that means that 316 divides into 622 one time. So let's put the value 1 right at the top. We have 316 times 1, and that equals 316. And of course, we're going to subtract. And let's do a little quick subtraction here. Let's see, 622. Let's just do it out here. Make it simple for us to see. Okay. All right. So subtract 6 from 2. We're going to produce a negative number. And that's something we don't want to do. So let's go ahead and borrow. So we subtract 1 from the next significant column. That leaves a 1 there. And of course, when we borrow in octal, we adding the value 8. So really 2 and 8 will represent 10. Subtract 6, and that will leave us with 4. So 4 goes here. And in the next significant column, we got 1 subtract 1. That leaves us with the value 0. And then we go to the next significant column. We're subtracting 3 from 6, which leaves us with 3. So we'll go ahead and put 3, 0, 4, and then we bring down the value 2. And so that leaves a value 3042. So we have to ask the question, the next question would be, how many times does the value 316 divide into the value 3042? Well, we have to look at the value 3042. You can look at the chart. We can see that 3042 is less than the octal value 3160. So that means that 316 divides into 3042 7 times. So we'll go ahead and put the value 7 right here. And then 7 times 316, we go back to the table, it shows that the value is 2642. This is represented in octal. So 2642. Then we subtract. So 2 subtract 2, you get 0. 4 subtract 4, you get 0. And we can't subtract 6 from 0. We're going to produce a negative number. So I'm going to have to borrow. So we should take 1 from the next significant column. That leaves a 2 here. And so when we add when we borrow and add that to 0, we're really adding 8. So it's the same thing as saying, like, the 8 subtract 6, that leaves a 2 here. And then we go back to the next significant column. You have 2 subtract 2, that would leave 0. We don't have to indicate that there. And then a final step is to drop down the 6. All right, so we're back to begin the process again. So we want to find out how many times does the value 316 divides into the value 2006. So if you look to the chart to the left, the value 2006 is on the chart. So it shows that it goes into there 5 times. So we enter the value 5 right there. Then we multiply 5 times 316. It's already indicated in the chart over here to be that value 2006. Then we subtract, and that produces the value 0. And that tells us we can't even divide anymore. So we have already shown over here that the value 125 in decimal is equivalent to 175 in octal. And this is what we wanted to show. Next, let us perform another octal division. This time we will divide numbers with a decimal point. Okay, once again we're going to divide octal numbers. For this example, we're going to divide the divisor 243.25 into the value or the dividend 36,609.125. Our expected quotient would be 150.5. And so towards the right, we have this octal representation. We have 363.2, and that's going to divide into 107,401.1. Towards the left here, we have we show like what the decimal values are in these examples and what its octal representation are. For the value 150.5 in decimal, we are expecting 226.4 in octal to be at the top of this example. So since we're dividing by 243.25, I created a similar table like what we did in the previous example. So we want to have multiples of 243.25. So when I multiply that value times 2, I get 486.50. When I multiply it times 3, I get 729.75. When I multiply it times 4, I get 973. When I multiply 243.25 times 5, I get 1216.25. And when I multiply 243.25 times 6, I get 1459.50. And times 7, I get 1702.75. And I multiply it times 8, I get 1946. So I have the octal representation. That was, again, using the same decimal to octal conversion out on the internet. I got each of the values from the decimal values. Also, it's going to come in to be handy because since we're dealing with decimal points here, so I have 8 to the minus 1 power. For this example, we're only dealing with 1 decimal point, so I just went 1 towards the right of the decimal point. So 8 to the minus 1 power is 0.125. And so you have to have examples here showing different multiples of that position. So when we multiply 1 times 0.125, we get, of course, 0.125. When we multiply it times 2, we get 0.25. And multiply it times 3, you get 0.375. When you multiply it times 4, you get 0.50. And when you multiply 0.125 times 5, you get 0.625. And when you multiply 6 times 0.125, you get 0.75. All of this is going to become handy inside this computation. And so let's begin. Since we're dealing with decimal representation, as you see here, we have, it'd be even more difficult here. So what we want to do is let's try to get rid of the decimal points. So what we want to show is we want to, let's see here. Let's see. I want to show that you can take, let's see here. We want to move towards the right. So this decimal point will go here. And let me erase that. And we got to also consider putting that back. So we have 1 digit behind the decimal point, and we also have another one that's in the divisor. So there's 2 decimal places we have to consider. So what I'm going to show is, let's move that over. Okay, so we'll erase this here. And now that decimal point is here. Let's get a pen. So it's sitting right here. And since we want to get rid of this decimal point, we move it over. But what really happens is this is also moving over, and so a 0 goes here. So let's erase that. So we'll start off with that there. But keep in mind we have 2 decimal positions to consider. All right, so let's compute now. So also, by removing these decimal points, when we look back at the charts, when we look at the octal representation, now when we originally had 363.2, but now we're going to just consider removing the decimal points here as well. So when we look at these computations, just pretend like the decimal points are not there. They're 36 for 363.2. It's really 3632 just for our computation, and then we'll convert back. All right, so let's begin. So let's see. Let's get a pencil here. All right, so we start off with the first digit. So we say, does 3632 go into the value 1? And the answer is no. So a 0 goes here. And so 0 times 3632 would be 0. And we subtract. And that leaves us with a 1. And then we bring down the 0. All right. So next we start the process over again. Does the value 3632 go into the value 10 in octal? The answer is no. So we put a 0 here. And then the next step is multiply 0 times 3632. That gives us the value of 0. We subtract. And then bring, so we got, let me see here. Let's go ahead and, so we have 1, 0, and then we bring down the value 7. So this leaves us with 107. So next we begin the process again. We said, does the value 3632 go into the value or divide into the value 107? The answer is no. So it's another 0 that goes to the top. So we multiply 0 times 3632 and we have the value 0. We subtract. That leaves 107. And then we bring down the 4 as the final step. And once again, does the value 3632 divide into the value 1074? And of course the answer is no. So we put a 0 above the 4. And the next step is to multiply 0 times 3632, which would produce a 0. We subtract. And that leaves us with 1074. And then we have to bring down the next item, which is 0. So now we have the value 10,740, and then we start to look towards the chart again. And I said because we had to remove the decimal points, we have to pretend like there's no decimal points here. So I'm looking at 10,000. So 10,000 would be less than 13,316. So that says that 3632 divides into 10740 2 times. So we put 2 up here. And then when we multiply 2 times 3632, we get the value 7464. Okay, so then when we subtract, we can, let's go ahead and just put this out here so you can see how I got the value. So the 10740 subtract 7464. And so when we subtract 4 from 0, it's going to produce a negative number. And that's something we don't want. So let's borrow. That's going to give us an 8 that goes here. And so 8 subtract 4, you get 4. And when we subtract 6 from 3, it's going to produce a negative number. So we want to borrow again. So that leaves a 6 there. And of course we add 8 there. So that leaves like 11 subtract 6. So 11 subtract 6 equals 5. And then 6 subtract 4 from 6, you get 2. And then you have, let's see, the 0, subtract 7 from 0. It's going to produce a negative number, so we'll borrow this one and then add 8 here. And so 8 subtract 7 leaves 1. So we'll put the value here, 1, 2, 5, 4. Let's go ahead and clear this out. And then we have to bring down the 1. And then we begin the process again. So we ask the question, how many times does 3632 divides into 12,541? The answer is 2 times. When you look at the value 12,541, when we look at the chart towards the left, we have the value showing 3 times, representing 1331.6. But remember, previously we mentioned that we removed the decimal point because we want to, compute without decimal points, and then we include those back in. This value, 13,316, is greater than 12,541. So it shows that 3632 divides into 12,541 in octal 2 times. 2 up here. And when we got 2 times 3632, we get the value 74.64. We subtract, and let's put it out here so we can show what we have. 12,541 subtract 74.64. All right, so when we subtract 4 from 1, we're going to produce a negative number, so we need to borrow. So we'll get the 3 here. So that leaves an 8 right there. And when you add 8 and the 1, you have a 9. And when that subtract 4 from 9, you get 5. When you try to subtract 6 from 3, you're going to get a negative number. So we want to borrow. So that leaves a 4 there. And that leaves an 8 right here. And that's pretty much saying 11 minus 6 is going to produce 5. And then we have 4, subtract 4 is 0. And then when we subtract 7 from 2, is going to produce a negative number. So let's borrow. And that gives us an 8. Then 8 and 2 together produce 10. That will subtract 7 and produce the value 3. So right here, the value 3, 0, 5, 5, and then we perform the final step, which would bring down the 1, and we have the value 30551. So let's erase this, see what we have. Okay, so once again, we start and we ask a question again. We have 3632 divided into 30,551 in octal. So we look at that value, 30,551. We look towards the chart, and we can see that 30,551 is less than 32,466. So that says that the value 3632 goes into 30,551 in octal 6 times. So we'll put a 6 here. And then 6 times 3632 will give us a value of 26,634. And then we subtract. So let's put that out here. 551, 26, 634, and subtract. And of course, when you subtract 4 from 1, you're going to produce a negative number. So it's borrow. That leaves 4 there. That leaves an 8 here. So 8 and 1 is 9. And when you subtract 4 from 9, you get 5. Subtract 3 from 4, you get 1. When you subtract 6 from 5, you're going to produce a negative number. So we're going to look at the entire 30 here. And that should give me a value of 17. All right, so that means 1715 goes here. And then our final step is to bring down the 0. All right, so bring down the 0. All right, so we begin the process again. So we ask the question, does the value 3632 divide, or how many times does 3632 divides into 17,150 in octal? If we look towards the chart, we will see that the fourth row, we have 1715.0. So that says that it goes in here 4 times. So we multiply 4 times 3632. We get the value 17,150, 0. We subtract, and we get the value 0. And that shows that we, can that's as far as we can go with computation at that point. So if you look at the top, remember we have we took out the decimal points. So let's try to put those back in. So we know that 1 was here, and we said that 1 was put out here. We have to consider the 1 that was already here. So that represented 1 decimal point here as well. And so this means that we have a quotient of 226.4, and this matches up with what we said previously, and this is what we wanted to show. This puts us in a position for my next tutorial, where we describe how to convert from decimal number to binary numbers. I hope this tutorial was helpful. If you find this tutorial to be helpful, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, feel free to join us at the computing sector. There will be more videos and tutorials coming soon. Thanks.